So, ladies, what are we going to talk about today?
How to manage your manager, particularly what someone who likes to change the goalpost on you. You know, one of those ones that tells you they want you to do something, you go off and they say, I didn't tell you to do that. So, what are your top tips for dealing with those kinds of challenges?
Can I add a characterization to that list?
Mhm.
A colleague and I used to refer to somebody that we worked with as a lighthouse manager. So they would give you full beam. These are all the things that I need from you. And then it was like their attention would full beam other places. And then it would be back like a couple of months later, full beam. What did you do with all of those things that I haven't spoken to you about for months? And you were like, oh, I didn't really do anything with them because you haven't spoken to me for months. So I didn't think that they were actually top priority. Yes, they were top priority. I need them right now. Ugh, that.
I used to work with someone who referred to a senior leader that used to do that as the Eye of Sauron.
Yeah.
I say that all the time. I don't want to be in the Eye of Sauron. I, I, I don't want so and so to have me on speed dial. I love that description of the full beam. Like, it's like I was going to say the no, you must look after you've got another, you know, horrendous migraine. Yes, you need to log off, go and rest. Before you do that, by the end of the day, can I get this, and this? But
Yeah.
do take some time to get. Which am I going to do? Am I going to go in, hide and cry in a dark room with an ice pack on my head, or am I going to do those five things that would take a week to do anyway by the end of the day? Um, okay,
That's
no
the
problem.
manager that says what they're supposed to say, says the script, oh, you should go and rest, take your time. But they don't really say, they're just saying it because that's what they know they have to say. Really, they want you to be like, oh no, I'll power through, don't worry.
Yep. I feel like maybe this episode has meandered into characterizing different management types, and we need to give our tips about how to deal with each one.
Maybe, maybe. I had so many crappy managers in the first half of my career that I never was managed like well before. So I generally do take like management or direction as someone checking in on me before I've even started, just but naturally because it was always a negative experience for quite a lot of years of the beginning of my career. So there's a lot of unlearning that I've had to do over the latter parts of my career about like letting go. What does it matter? Why, sometimes you do need to show your workings out, but you do need to challenge it as well and say, what do I need to do to reach a point where you're comfortable with me doing it this way or not giving you the up whatever it might be, the detail of everything.
A
And
good
I think,
suggestion.
yeah, the lighthouse manager that I worked with was somebody who just was getting stuff off their desk. And it took me ages to realize that it wasn't me. It like they literally didn't care if I was the person who did all of the stuff that they asked to be done. It just, they were sending it to me and then I was free to parcel it up and send it off to whoever it needed to get sent to. It took me ages. I just thought they were taking the piss and that they were sending me really junior, unnecessary work. And I was like, don't
Mm.
they understand what grade I am? And they pay me too much for this shit. Rah, rah, rah. And somebody very gently sort of said to me, like, I get that it's addressed to you, but do you actually need to be the one to do it? And I was like, oh no,
Um,
quite right. Yeah.
Yeah, had a
the other trick.
similar light bulb moment in saying, that just because they've sent it to you doesn't mean you personally have to do the thing.
Mm.
That's what you have a team for. They just want you to
Get
assign
it
it to
done.
somebody.
Mm.
Oh, I didn't know that, but they told me to do it.
I also think, though, something I've experienced in a previous, a reasonable number of years ago was that I hung around with a management situation that was just not good for me, and there was no amount of strategizing or tactics
Mm.
that were actually going to help me feel better about that relationship. And I hung out there for way longer than I should have, just being miserable. So I think that's the other thing, is
Mm.
to sort of really, probably with the support of, a trusted colleague or a mentor, a coach or somebody, be able to do a bit of a risk assessment and sort of pragmatically say, is there actually any chance of this improving? And if not, does that mean that actually I need to take myself somewhere else that will be healthier for me and more aligned with my preferred ways of working that will let me get on and thrive?
Yeah,
I think that goes back to what you said earlier, sorry, about the person who wasn't even going to have a conversation. There was no communication. They were just, I'm out of here. And is actually there is a happy medium. It is asking for clarification, asking for, okay, these 10 things that you want me to do. Can you tell me which is the priority in your mind? Can you help me identify what things can wait and what things we need to, so that you're demonstrating that you're on top of it, you get and that you've got their priorities and their concerns at the forefront of the work, and making sure that, and that goes a long way to that reassurance. But there's got to be that communication. You've got to be able to ask those questions and, speak up if things are not clear, or you feel like they're nitpicking the wrong things. You go, well, then can you help me understand where you're coming from? Why is this the priority, or what's the thinking behind this? And, what are the objections to the way that we were doing it, or I prefer to do it? And
I think this can be real value in naming the thing you're experiencing and going, this doesn't really work for me. Does it work for you? And if not, what should we do about it? Because otherwise, you're just sort of thinking yourself round and round and round in these circles and going, well, maybe it's this, or maybe it's that, or maybe they think this about me. And it's like, well, ask them, find out.
Also protect yourself, as you were saying about, where is this is a toxic relationship? Is it something that I should be staying in? I don't mean that kind of relationship, but work relationship. And there's also stepping back and thinking, is this behavior, whatever behavior you're experiencing from a manager or a supervisor, is it appropriate? There's a fine line between micromanaging and bullying, at times. And I mentioned that, the boss that ask you to do something and then say that they never told you to do it and things like that. And that's a trick that bullies use to destabilize and things like that. And that's something I've experienced a lot and learned to document everything. So if you have to go to HR, if you have to go to a senior colleague and say, I'm finding this really challenging, I need your help with it. And that, again, is the other trick, isn't it? In often all these cases, is obviously not to say you are doing this or you are doing that, because that can be quite inflammatory. But saying that, how we're operating at the moment makes me feel like there is a lack of trust. For example, if you say you don't trust me, they'll just get, oh, cool, they'll just get their back up.
Yeah. And I would refer back to Brene Brown has a nice 7-part framework for identifying which bit of trust is it that's out of whack. And it can be really helpful because, like you say, like, you don't trust me is way too inflammatory and big and slippery, and it's like hard to get your arms around. But being able to say, actually, I really struggle when you rearrange our one-to-one meetings all the time, because that shows to me that you're not being reliable, is way more purposeful feedback than it seems like you don't trust me.
Yeah. And saying this is my one-to-one as well. The manager that takes over your one-to-one, my one-to-one. Another thing, because I've had managers who don't necessarily take things well, and I worry about how I'm going to say something or if I'm going to get it out right when I do it. Just sometimes if I'm nervous to raise something, I will email them in advance and be like, oh, I want to touch on these couple of things, so that there's a bit of forewarning, so I don't get the knee-jerk reaction off them, and I don't risk saying something I'm not sure about, but there's a gentle, I'm going to raise something around this area, so that there's just a little bit of signposting, so it doesn't come out the blue.
I've occasionally, when I've actually sat down to have the conversation, then prefaced it with, I need to say something, I'm not really sure how to say it, so it might be a bit clumsy, but stick with me while I figure it out. Can buy you so much space and patience as you're navigating through some of those awkward conversations where you don't know exactly how to say the thing and the heart is racing and the tongue feels fat and the clammy hands, and you're like, oh, this is awful, but I sort of need to say something.
Yeah.
Invite that bit of patience.
Good tip. Good tip. Definitely. But that's all we've got time for this week, folks.
Thanks for joining. See you next time.